Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, good morning, or even good evening to some of you folks out there. And thank you for joining today's broadcast of Acrolinx AI Inside the Engine. My name is Deb Simons. I'm a Senior Marketing Director here at Acrolinx. And we're going to take you through a great broadcast today of looking at some of the new enhanced features of Acrolinx and talking a bit about how to set your goals, your guidance, and your governance along with Acrolinx. So before we get started, I just want to make a couple of introductions to today's presenters. We have Robert Bredlau, who is our Vice President of Global Channels and Alliances. And we also have Xiomara who some of you may know. She is our Senior Customer Success Manager. And I already introduced myself, so without further ado, just a few housekeeping items before we get started. The first is we are recording today's broadcast, and you will all receive a follow-up email today with a link to the recording. We also will have the slides available, and we love questions. So please put together all your questions, and what we will do is at the end of the broadcast, we will address those. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to turn it over to Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to our webinar. Before we start with the exciting stuff, I thought maybe one or the other might be curious to learn a little bit more about Acrolinx, where we're coming from, what we do. I obviously keep it rather short, but just to give you some brief information. As you can see, company was founded in 2002 as a spin-off of the German Institute of Artificial Intelligence. So as you can see, even and we'll hear AI is in our DNA. So this is where we even have long-time relations with the, for example, University of Stanford or Edinburgh. And on the other side, we work with the well-known AI companies like Amazon, Facebook, and others, which obviously is quite important to us. Besides those customers on the AI side, you see a lot more references here on this last night, where you even can see our verticals. We are quite active in regards of the software vendors, healthcare, aerospace and defense, manufacturing, high tech, and the financial industry. But even it's important, so obviously you can see a lot of enterprise companies, and then don't be scared if you are not with an enterprise company. So we all also work with the medium and the large companies, so no worries about that. The goal really is to support, or our message in the end is really, we want to create better content, more efficient. That's really where Acrolinx will help a lot. And if you, for example, can imagine that you would have the possibility in using Acrolinx and providing the right content at the right time, so really address your audience with the right content, depending on who's your customer, whom you're going to target at any given touch point on your customer journey. I guess that would be pretty exciting. And in the meantime, the touch points have grown that much. So in the past, it was mainly a call, maybe 20 years ago, where you could get in contact with your customers or with a sales rep. But today you have so many touch points where a customer can get information about you, can get in contact with you, and this is where it's really getting important to get the right information. So to underline that, for example, we have some research material here, where you, on the next slide, can see the effect. So 20% of customers will go to a competitor after just only one bad experience with your company. On the other side, companies that excel a customer experience grow revenue by somewhere between 4 to 8% above a market. So I guess this is really important. That's research not done by us. So this is really done by research firms. And in today, it's really that customers reward or punish company based on a single experience. So it doesn't take that much to make your customer give him an exciting experience or even a disappointing experience. So, and in the past or last couple of years, so this was mainly a behavior of the millennials, but in the meantime, this is relevant for any generation. So, but from here, I guess, enough from my side. So it's time for the much more exciting presentation from my colleague Xiomara.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, just bear a second while I show my screen. So thank you for joining us today. I will go ahead and start the deep dive on our presentation today. As Robert mentioned, there's a real strategy for how we deliver the content. And we work with goals, guidance, and governance. And basically we call those the 3Gs at Acrolinx. We'll go deep through all those specific items. So, but first, before we get started, just kind of recap that Acrolinx basically is the only AI platform for enterprise content creation. As Robert mentioned, 12 years ago, we were spun off from the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. So across the board, it's embedded into our system. So how do we do how do we basically get to your goals? Basically getting better content across the board. With Acrolinx, we have a very specific strategy on how we do that. As we mentioned before, we work with your goals, guidance, and governance. Going through the specifics, goals really means, what are you wanting to do with your writing style, your tone of voice, your terminology. Once you know that, you put that into the system, and then you go into the governance. How do you empower the individual writers? And writers can be anybody, and basically creating content for your company. Before, it was, a lot of them were professional writers. Now we have across organizations, many that are not, really writers, but they're contributing and creating content for you. And then the last piece of our strategy is governance. How do you know that you are actually achieving your goals, that your writers are basically following your terminology, your style guide? So let's go through individually, working, with the individual, 3Gs. So the first one that we want to discuss is goals. So as you know, what we talked about, the first really meat of the process is looking at what you're trying to achieve. I work with so many customers, and sometimes they come in and say, we have a great style guide. It's a PDF. We sent it off at the beginning of the year, and do we know that everybody's using it? We don't know. And some companies have a great set of terminology. They may have it in an Excel spreadsheet. Some people have it in, a little database. So what we're talking about here is putting that and automating it for you. So that's when we talk about what you want to achieve. Also, what kind of tone of voice you want to, speak to your customer. Do you want to be clear? You want to be concise? So we go through that whole process and making sure that as we tune the product, that we're basically looking at what you're trying to achieve. So here's also an example of how you basically look at your goals too, because the system does learn from your content. I have a screenshot of the guidance wizard, and the guidance wizard really looks at all your content, all the checks are coming in, and surfaces things that you may want to adjust in your system. So this is a great tool, basically, after you're deployed, Are you wanting to make some changes in your terminology, in your guidelines? This is a great tool that administrators use. And then we have the tone of voice. We talked a little bit about that before, but when you think about tone of voice, in an entire organization, you have different basically people writing for different audiences. So you have probably marketing, you have legal, you have customer support, and for the most part, there is a hierarchy. Everybody has to have certain things that you require. But sometimes you have to have a little bit, maybe the tone has to be a little more complex for legal versus marketing. They want to have more simple, shorter sentences. So you want to be able to address those, and you can do that with Acrolinx. So the next G on our strategy is guidance. Really, this is basically after you have set the system, you have your goals. This is how your writers basically use the system and how they get the guidance from the system. What terminology that they need to basically use. What are the do not use terms? Basically, the system really surfaces those as well. This is part of the process as we get you deployed. Really, Acrolinx is it's one of the only softwares that can actually read your content, whether you're writing in Word or XML or with Oxygen. We basically have so many different plugins that your writers really have access to. And the nice thing about it is that, you may or may not know, but this is server-based. So all your terminology, your guidance are in a server, and you're basically, as you make changes to that server, it automatically pushes them down to your writers. So very dynamic product, and allows you to really have a lot of downtime when you're trying to make changes in your terminology or guidance. So maybe, tweaking your tone of voice. And then the last G is governance. This is really how you track to goal. So there's multiple features that help you. I have a picture here of the scorecard. This is specific for your writers. I will go into a deeper discussion of when to use it and how to use it, but this gives them a summary per document of basically what are the things that came up. How many, spelling errors did they have overall? Were there any style issues that they need to, really address? I use this because it's something that is you could save it and go back to it. It allows the writer to really evolve in the system. The next thing is basically looking at your content across the board. So not only can you look at the content one at a time, but you could also do some batch checking. The content analyzer allows you to really go through maybe a whole repository of content. So maybe you want to see how the entire repository is performing across your organization. You can definitely do that with the content analyzer. And then the last thing is the metrics. I am going to basically go through some of the screenshots for our upcoming release 5.3 that's coming at the end of the quarter. So these basically metrics, if you're on 5.2, they're going to look a little bit different, or maybe not at all. Dashboards are not going to be there. So but I'm really excited to show you some of the new features when we're talking about metrics. And really, it allows you to, look at, what your Acrolinx score is, how your users are using the system, and so on. So let's look at, the first one, the quality score. And this is a little bit different than 5.2. The biggest thing is now you can set target scores by content group. So with 5.2, we released the content groups. So you now can differentiate, from maybe your email content versus your marketing content, maybe your support content. And then the system gives you an overall score and then score by your content group. And once you set the score, the target scores, it lets you know how much content falls below basically that target score. very flexible, and then it really gives you a deeper understanding of the things that you need to focus on. And we always say here, go for green. Basically, as you know, 80% or higher your score is green. So we definitely focus on that and want to make sure that you know what your content is, how their content is performing. So I love this dashboard. It's a lot different than 5.2, so I can't wait for everybody to be able to use it. The next one, I think it's it's actually a little bit more enhanced than 5.2 is the checking activity. A lot of it has to do, you do not only want to see how your content is performing, but who's using it, who are your power users, and what groups are using it the most. This allows you to not only talk to those groups that are using the most, but also go back to the groups that are not using it. Is there something that's missing, or why? Finding the why, because the tool is very powerful, but it's only as powerful as basically the end user. We're definitely not here to replace the writer. That's never going to go away. We're basically empowering the writer to have, their style guide, the terminology really at their fingertips. And I can't tell you enough when writers get a hold of the system. Sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, now I don't have to go dig through that PDF, or, I don't have to go and look at that Excel spreadsheet. It's all in the system and it's dynamic. Integration tracking, that's another feature that is coming up. So a lot of you use, Word or PowerPoint, or maybe you're using, Google Sheets. You want to know what is being used for a couple of reasons. One, you want to know that they're using the latest and greatest versions. A lot of it has a lot more functionality, or maybe faster. We basically look at always making things better. So this dashboard really gives you an understanding of, who's using it. Maybe you have to, work with your IT to upgrade people up to the latest and greatest, but gives you a really good understanding. So what we're seeing right now is, you can actually have governance in so many ways. One, you could see exactly how your content is performing. Two, you can see the adoption on the end user side. And three, you can really manage, the upgrade process. What are you giving what tools you're giving your users? Okay, so then I really wanted to talk a little bit about integrations. You may have some questions about, before I get into the demo of, what is really available. As I mentioned to you, we have many, many, many integrations. So no matter what the writer is using, we probably do support it. If you have any questions, you could always go to our support site. So I can see here, support.acrolinx.com. This is a really great article. Basically, that gives you the latest and greatest about the sidebar integrations. As you may or may not know, we've had two types of plugins. One, it was the classic, which is the original version, and now what I'm going to demo you today is the sidebar version of the integration. So here on this article, you can actually find what's available, what systems, what versions of the maybe Word you have, and how that goes into the plugin, and what plugin you need to download. So anyway, I can't tell you enough how how much information you can find in our support side. And if you could just, if you don't have to have the whole string, just search for Acrolinx sidebar integrations help, and the article will come up automatically. So now let's go ahead and look at the live demo. So let me just open this document here. So what I did here, I uploaded basically a sample document in my Word. And as you can see, when you first start, the information, you won't see the Acrolinx icon. It actually is in your review tab. And you think about it, for workflow purposes, that makes a lot of sense, because you're writing, you need to review, you go to your review tab, you click on Acrolinx, and the sidebar loads. Then on this next thing, as long as everything at this point should be configured, and Basically, your style guide's already loaded, your terminology's in the system. So all you have to do is click on the check, and that basically will check your content against the terminology, style, grammar rules, spelling, and so on. So you can see here, I have 34 issues, and my score is 67. So I definitely have a little work to do in order to go for green. So the great thing about it is that these cards, you can actually see what they are for. So the red cards are for spelling, the blue cards are for grammar, and so on. And this allows you to really work on how you actually change the document or work with the document. So I can actually go ahead and say, okay, for right now, I'm just going to work on my spelling flags, and I can actually see that there are spelling issues. And as you can see, by just clicking on it, it jumps exactly where that spelling issue can be found in the document, so you can actually see the context of it. I can decide that, yes, this is a misspelled word and I want to fix it. I can fix it for the document just by clicking on the green here, basically the suggested spelling word. If I want to work on other flags, I can do that just by clicking again on my little selection menu here. And one of the things that I wanted to just highlight a little bit, because here is the difference between style and tone of voice. So as you know, the style rules are very specific to your style guide. Whether you want contractions or you want to spell the dates versus not spelling the dates, maybe using international date formats, etc. Tone of voice really looks at complex sentences. So it may look to see if your sentence is too long, and it gives you really specific guidance. So it really allows you to not only say, okay, yeah, my sentence is too long, which would typically be a style guideline, but now we embedded it so you can have more guidance. So here you can see is, try to split it into a sentence, use simpler words, and it also highlights what it's talking about too. So it goes specifically to your sentence and say, okay, well, maybe I can use a little bit of different wording here. And then, as you go through, you can fix the guidance and then move on. And then the last thing I wanted to basically just touch base on is the scorecard. So as you notice, when I made the change, my card went away. So if I wanted to go back and say, okay, what was that new terminology or the terminology that I should be using, you can actually just go into click on your score, and it actually loads your scorecard. So you can actually go directly to what it was that you wanted to find out. And it's a good review because not only tells you the issue, how many times, but also gives you the context. So we provide everything for you to, just have that extra guidance as you're, working in that document. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the demo. I will go ahead and pass it back to my colleague, Deb. Thank you so much. And let us know if you have any questions.
Well, thanks, Xiomara. Yeah, so we actually have a few questions. Give me just 1 second here. So the first question, and you had actually spoken about this earlier, is the availability of 5.3 is end of quarter, I believe you said. So a couple of questions, 2 parts. One is from our existing customers who are on the broadcast. Am I eligible for the upgrade is number 1. And if so, how do I go about getting the upgrade to 5.3?
Yeah, so yes, definitely the upgrades are, anything that you want to upgrade to, that is included. All you have to do is contact your sales rep types. And most of you should have a success representative. So we answer any questions. So you can do twofold. One, just ask your sales representative at Acrolinx, or go directly to your success person, and he or she will be more than happy to have a consultation and go through what would be the requirements for the 5.3 upgrade.
Cool. The next question is Acrolinx compatible with InCopy and InDesign?
Yes. And what I would suggest, we have a great document that is, actually, let me see if I can find the link here. It's our integrations, basically, document. And it gives you not only what version you have, and then it gives you what plugin version you need. Because some people you have no idea. Sometimes I see very old versions of software, and basically sometimes they're not even supported by the vendor, but they're still using it. We may be working with that, or we may not have that available for you. So I will put the link on the chat for that document that you can go in and look for that.
Great. Next question. Is it possible to run checks on a batch of topics that are contained within a data map or in a set of identified data maps by location?
That is a great question. I would have to come back to that. I'm not sure that you could, depending if you have structure on structure, it may give you some false flags.
And all of these questions will get recorded, so we can certainly get back to the audience if we need to do more research. Next question, and I know we've heard a lot of this. Does Acrolinx replace the function of an editor?
Absolutely not. The question is very, I get that all the time. What it really does, it empowers the editor to do other things, not to spend time on the menial things of terminology, and more focus on basically the context of the content, the meaning of the content. Because as you know, with Acrolinx, we do a great job with terminology and style guides, but if you're telling somebody to go left rather than right, the meaning of the content will be wrong and your document will be wrong. So now your editor really has that time to review for the correctness of your content. So it gives them even more time to even make that content even better.
Great. And let's see, I think we have time for one more question, and that is there a plan that caters to a one-person run business?
I would defer that one to Robert. It depends. I mean, really is the more content that you have, the better that the system works, because it learns through your style guides and terminology. But Robert, do you have a input on that?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, the amount of content keeps on growing, and obviously you have so many different directions where obviously you can target your content. So you have technical documentation, you have content marketing, and if you combine all of that with the result of having one tone of voice to your audience, as I described at the beginning, so this is where this is possibly a lot of help, which relieves the editors from the boring stuff, but give them more time for the exciting campaigns and things like that.
Great. Thank you, Robert and Xiomara. Well, this is now the end of the broadcast, so I would like to thank everyone for their time today. Please follow us on Twitter. And also, I know that a number of you have reached out in reference to the newsletter that we publish twice a month. One that specifically talks about product information, one that has a lot of other types of information. If you take just one moment to subscribe to the newsletter, all you need to do is to go to the homepage, acrolinx.com. If you search down at the very bottom of the page, you will see where I've circled here email preference. And if you click on that, enter your email address, you can subscribe to our newsletters. Again, these are bi-weekly newsletters that you would be receiving. So again, on behalf of Acrolinx, I want to thank everyone for their time today. And for those questions that we haven't been able to answer, we will get those answers to you. If there's any other questions, feel free to send them our way. And once again, thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.